Safe Pets of Ukraine initiative is the name that we use to describe our joint effort. And Safe Pets of Ukraine was founded by Cormotech, which is a leading pet food producing company in Lviv, Ukraine. It's a family-owned business. And since 2014, so since the first attack of Russia happened in the east of the country, Cormotech has been running an effort to help those pets who were suffering already back then in the east of the country as part of the CSR effort. And now, since February 2022, we had the large-scale invasion happening all around Ukraine, unfortunately, and this invasion has left about more than hundreds of thousands of animals either without their families or wounded or both, requiring medical treatment, medical attention. Just to give you a sense of the scale that we are talking about there, Ukraine before the war was a country of roughly 42 million people. We say that 57% of Ukrainians are pet owners. We can say that about 7.5 million cats were owned in the country, which is number 9 in the world, and slightly over 5 million dogs. Now, since the beginning of the hostilities in February, over 6 million people have fled abroad, and 4 million more were relocated inside the country. So you have a massive movement of 10 million people, at least, and of course, most of them living with their pets, relocating with their pets, but many of them unable to do so and having to abandon them behind. So before the war, we had more than 250 shelters in the country with over 100,000 animals. It is difficult to estimate the number of animals on the streets right now because of the war, but we can judge on the amount of requests that we get that it's way over, it's way more than 250,000, those who need help, probably many more. So the Cormotech started responding to the crisis, but very soon it realized that its own effort would not be enough to meet the growing demand, the growing need for help. So at first, Cormotech donated its own food, some of that, but very quickly it became clear that first of all, it is required to focus on the viability of the commercial operation itself, and on the other hand, simply the capacity would not be matched with the growing need. So Cormotech decided to set up a structure to be able both to attract funding, attract partnerships, and to enlarge and grow the scale of the aid that they did in the past. So this is how UHearts was founded as a non-profit foundation in Lithuania, where Cormotech also has a production facility. And since February, we've been mostly focused on disaster response, so helping mainly those animals who were acutely in need of help, in need of food, in need of medical treatment. But generally, the vision for the foundation is not only to do the disaster response, but also mid to long term, also to focus on projects to improve pet life conditions, not only in Ukraine, but also generally in Eastern Europe, in the countries where Cormotech is also actively present on the market. So right now, since we mostly do emergency and disaster response, again, some numbers to understand the need. We have received over 13,000 of requests through our website, through our platform. We widely advertise the possibility to turn for help to us. And these requests are covering over 243,000 animals. So these are only the requests and the number of animals that we caught in our network, so to speak. So we believe that the numbers are, in reality, of those who need help on the ground are much, much higher. We already distributed 557 tons of food and helped 113,000 of animals. The most requested items right now are obviously the food. So we estimate that approximately 100 tons of food per week is needed. More dog food, so about 75 tons dog food and 25 tons cat food. But also supplies, collars, leashes, muzzles, cages, and carriers, supplies that help move the animals across the country, but also supplies that help in the shelters. And finally, medication and vaccines. Very often animals who end up in the shelters are not aware about their vaccination status, or the shelters would need to treat them. So these are the items that are very high in demand. And we also started our own effort, our own vaccination against rabies effort, and we hope to be able to expand it soon. Before I turn to the network of regional logistics and distribution centers that I wanted to leave over to my colleague Taras, who is on the ground in Kyiv, to explain, I would also like to say a couple of words how our initiative is structured to explain to you the various actors who are involved. So the Safe Pets of Ukraine, again, is the umbrella name that we use to describe the initiative, but the implementing partners and main structures in the initiative itself are the UHeart, so the foundation that I run, that is operating to source donations, both financial donations and in-kind donations, to procure pet food where we have the lack of in-kind donations. What we do is we procure food from producers who are located abroad. First of all, for the reason to avoid the conflict of interest, we are not purchasing Cormotec's produced food, and also Cormotec has to maintain its own commercial side of the operations. So they are focusing right now on distributing to the stores across the country and focusing less on the humanitarian side of things to be able to pay the salaries and to able to run their business properly. And we have, apart from UHearts, we have in Ukraine the NGO called the Element of Life, run by Taras, that is responsible for distributing the aid that UHearts purchases and forwards inside Ukraine. Elements of Life operates a network of warehouses, storage facilities, and distribution centers. You can see the map on the slide that shows where we have currently a physical presence. You would know that it's the area mostly in the east and in the south of the country. So we are focusing on the area that are closest to the front lines to make sure that we deliver the aid exactly in the areas that are in most need, where the pet stores are not operating, where shelters or volunteers are not able to source or to purchase food from other commercial sources. When we operate, we purchase food from our partners who are producing that under bilateral agreements. So we use non-branded white bags marked as humanitarian aid. We do that to avoid reselling of humanitarian aid, to avoid that the aid would land up on the open market somewhere. Unfortunately, these things happen. And we make sure that we track all the way to the end recipient, all the chain from the producer to the regional distribution center to the final recipient, so that we can offer accountability and that we maintain a database of where our food is going and how many animals it is helping and where exactly it is helping. In our work, we already were able to set up a couple of important partnerships. And our most early and most important supporter on this road is the Greater Good Charities based in the US. We have started to cooperate at the very outset, and Greater Good has helped us both financially and in kind to set up the whole structure to get the initial amount of pet food and other donated supplies that are coming. Some of that is coming from the US, but the food is procured in Europe. The reason for that is, of course, the geographical proximity, so less transportation cost, but also the regulations, because we need to be able to import the food into the country that is certified in the European Union. So together with Greater Good and with the Element of Life, we are implementing this initiative since February. And if Taras would be so kind to jump in right now and explain a little bit what the situation on the ground is like and how we run the local distribution. Taras, the floor would be yours.
Thank you. We create and launching 14 regional centers, like Yuri told before, behind the fire line. So our initiative is working like, first of all, we have landing, which in which are collection of applications of the needs from different regions. Our operation manager working with them for formation of the needs for the different regions. After that, our logistics allocation of humanitarian cargo for delivery to the humanitarian storage of the regional centers, and to these centers with decided the day and the time for the humans from the different shelters. We sending SMS information notifications like about when and where they can get their goods, and then receiving of the human pet food by the applicants. So this is our initiative working like that, trying to make more traceability of this system. So all our application forms are indicated in different our systems for searching the traceability of giving these goods.
Okay, thank you, Taras. Just to give you also an overview of how the things look on the ground, because this looks like a nice slide, a nice picture, but the reality on the ground is unfortunately a dire one. And these regional centers, as we call them, are manned by the volunteers who are often working under very difficult and challenging security conditions. So shelling is part of the daily reality, unfortunately, in the east of the country. And the challenges that we have is, of course, one of the physical security itself. So the physical security of our storage facilities, but also the physical security of our volunteers who are working there every day. This is challenge number one. Challenge number two is how to maintain touch and how to understand even the scope of the need on the ground, because the situation is so fluid, especially along the front lines. And because we are covering the three types of the recipients, we are helping both the shelters who are either existing shelters that existed before the war and the shelters that became operational because of the war. So very often these are not a very well developed institutions, so to speak. Very often these are a couple of volunteers who are helping a couple of hundreds animals, often in their private territory, in their private land plot or their home. We're also helping the breeders, and we're also helping private pet owners and pet volunteers. So the amount of people who are requiring help and who are turning for help is enormous. And this is why, for instance, we ask them to come to the regional center to collect the food rather than doing the last mile, simply because doing the last mile delivery to the end consumer, we will not be able to match in terms of our capacity. But so far, I think we have been quite successful in achieving our first goal, which is to offer disaster response, and which is to help at the moment and in the place where it is most needed. Unfortunately, at the time that we see that the war is continuing, and there is unfortunately again no clarity as to how long it may take, and there are daily escalations on the front lines, we need to be prepared also for the long run to meet these needs and help. And given the destruction of the infrastructure and the supply chain, we are also projecting that eventually we would be facing shortages also in terms of inputs and in terms of agriculture, in terms of food in general. So we are right now at this moment with our initiative also trying to do some mid to long-term planning and to build up a stock of supplies, both inside and outside of the country, so that we are able to continue helping, to keep helping in the time span of many more months to come.
So Greater Good Charities, we're a 501c3 nonprofit based in the US. Our mission is protecting people, pets, and the planet, and mobilizing in response to need and amplifying the good. These are old audited financial numbers. This year, we're going to come in at about $100 million in support. We act as a granting organization. We support organizations all over the world, and we also run and operate 15 of our own programs. We work in the US with a network of over 9,000 animal shelters and rescues, and we run the world's largest pet food bank, distributing to date over 500 million meals to pets in need all over the world. And we've given over, this number should now be 500 million in cash and in-kind support since our inception. I'm going to skip forward a little bit here just to show what we did with the Ukraine response. Save Pets of Ukraine with UHearts Foundation was actually our first partnership in response to the Ukraine war. And in addition to working with them, we've also supported several organizations in neighboring countries and deployed some of our own programmatic staff on the ground, including veterinary support and our good packs. So ultimately, this is what our operational plan has looked like. We really started by providing cash support and sending a field team into Ukraine and neighboring countries to do an assessment of operations on the ground. We've set up a network of warehouses to handle product in neighboring countries. UHearts is our primary partner for pet food and has been distributing our good packs and pet food within Ukraine, as you saw earlier. And then we have some other distribution networks that operate outside in Poland and Romania as well. Since our initial response, we have established warehouses and distribution networks in several countries, as you see here. We've also provided some support to recruit foster volunteers so that refugees fleeing with their pets will have a safe home for their pets. And we've actually now hired an employee who is located in Poland to help oversee the operations on the ground there. So with regards to our distribution network, this is what that looks like to date. Most of those blue points that you see within Ukraine is the UHearts distribution network that you've already seen. And with regards to feeding pets, we are committed to this. As Yuri has stated, this is a long-term need. It is growing more severe. We've been able to support UHearts by providing over 500 tons of food already. We are currently fundraising with our donor base here in the US with a commitment to procure at least another 1,000 tons of food, but obviously the need is much more than that. As Yuri stated, they're getting requests for 500 tons of pet food per month. And so we're really proud to be a part of this initiative. We're really proud to partner with UHearts Foundation, Elements of Life, and the Save Pets of Ukraine initiative. We think that this is the best way to provide direct relief to owned pets and street animals within Ukraine to help weather this crisis. So I'll leave it at that. But we're grateful for your time today and looking forward to discussing any opportunities to help the pets and people of Ukraine who are affected by this crisis.
So how can you help, and how can your companies and how can your organizations help? What we are asking from our potential partners is to help us with procuring the pet food. This is the need that we have, the #1 need. So either if you have food available that can be donated, we would be glad to accept an in-kind donation in food that, for example, is close to the expiry date, or any kind of food that could be donated. We can arrange transportation for that. So we have both the budget and the capacity to pick up the donations and transport them into the country and to distribute them inside the country. If you are able to support us with a financial donation to procure the food or to help us with our administrative cost, very welcome as well. If you are a producer and if you could produce for us, for example, the food for dogs and cats under a dedicated arrangement, we would be willing to explore this opportunity with you as well. This would depend on the conditions and on the transportation cost for us. So we need to understand the options that would be there on the table. Right now, we are procuring from 2 producers in Poland and 1 producer in Czech Republic, but we are exploring also partnerships as far as Portugal and very often, and Italy, for example, and very often sometimes we get conditions that are better than, for example, in Poland. So we are always looking for new opportunities and for new partnerships as well. Some producers choose to produce for us on a commercial basis for some part of the load, and some part they donate. So it really depends on the individual capacity of each producer. Again, what we are asking is to produce in white bags labeled as humanitarian aid. If you have supplies that are non-food items that you would be willing and able to donate, again, we are happy to arrange the logistics to accept a donation and to ship them into Ukraine. We think that the transportation should be fairly easy in terms of the required documents, because even if the UK has left the EU, and we have looked at this situation in the past, the goods would be only transiting the European Union, because Ukraine is also a non-EU country, so there would be no need to go through the customs actually in the European Union. So the food would just cross the EU territory and end up in Ukraine. So the paperwork is fairly uncomplicated. It's just the transit declaration. And finally, help us with spreading the word about the needs that pets have in Ukraine, that the animals are facing in Ukraine. Inform your network about this initiative, inform your network about the opportunities that are there to help. If you are cooperating with any charities that are focusing on helping the animals, and we ourselves are focused on the animals inside Ukraine, in the country, but there are also initiatives, for instance, that are helping animals who ended up elsewhere in Europe, fleeing Ukraine together with their owners. So any initiative that helps alleviate the suffering of these pets, of these animals, is really most welcome. And inside Ukraine, there are also other initiatives similar to ours, and we are coordinating with them to make sure that we understand who is helping where is the geographical scope, to avoid the duplication of effort. So what we say usually is that any help counts. So if there is any way you were already doing anything to support animals in Ukraine, or if you are considering to help, we would appreciate your partnership, and we would appreciate an opportunity to cooperate with you along these lines that I have outlined. So from my part, I hope I explained our needs, our aims, and our structure. If not, I'm very much looking forward to answer your questions. But I would also ask my colleagues from Greater Good if they would like to say a couple of words from their perspective, because Greater Good is helping animals not only in Ukraine, but also all around the world. But their Ukraine effort has really been massive in the last couple of months. And they are also considering opportunities to expand also their cooperations to be able to do even more to match the growing need.